Hey guys, we're here at the Museum for Natural History in Berlin, and we have a private audition today to look at some dinosaurs and talk about Phanerozoic 2, track by track.
A bit of context to start off. So the first part of the record, Phanerozoic 1, finished with the track Permian, the Great Dying. That was the extinction event that wiped out 90% of all life on Earth, and that was the end of the Paleozoic. The new record starts with the Mesozoic era and concludes with the Cenozoic era, which is the time we currently live in. And after that mass extinction event, life slowly recovered, and God created the dinosaurs and took them away again some 65 million years ago, but we'll get to that later. First track, Triasic. It's a really weird song. It's based on a very atypical rhythmical pattern in metal.
It's kind of like an alteration of a ragaton beat and a Middle Eastern beat called malfouf. It's kind of, the ragaton is dum dum ga dum dum ga, and the malfouf beat is the same rhythm but with a snare coming right after, so dum ga ga dum ga ga.
The whole song has a bit of an oriental vibe to it, which is going back to our first ever visit in India with a band in 2014. And back then we saw a band called the Manganiyar Seduction, which was an incredible experience. It was basically like literally an orchestra of like 50 or 60 musicians, tablas players, flutes, and a conductor that was like, telling the musicians when to play and when to stop playing, etc. And we were all watching that, super blown away. And ever since that moment, we've been wanting to explore more into a direction of merging oriental melodies and patterns and rhythmical patterns with ocean sound.
When we went on the Siberian Traps tour last year, we ended up in Armenia. The promoter there recommended a flute player there, like a local guy who was apparently capable of playing all kinds of traditional instruments, including the duduk. And when we were sound checking, this guy came over. We didn't really expect anything to happen, and then he just plugged his stuff in. Loic and Peter set up the mics, and he started playing his first take, and the whole room just basically turned around.
It just sounded really awesome, and I remember turning around and meeting Loic's eyes on the other side of the room, and we're like, fuck, this is actually it. And that's what happened. That first take actually ended up on the record, so we didn't have him record it again later. We took 2 or 3 takes in that 1 hour between soundcheck and doors, and that's what ended up on the record. So we already mentioned it, this is our Dino record, and I think the first time we realized that we would eventually come across that time as part of our album concept was back in early 2018 in Iceland when we recorded drums. So the dinos roamed the Earth from the early Triassic, the first track of Phanerozoic 2, about 250 million years ago, until pretty much exactly 65 million years ago, when they disappeared all of a sudden. A giant asteroid of about 10 kilometers diameter hit a shallow sea in what is nowadays Yucatan, Mexico, causing a giant supersonic shockwave, fallout of molten rock material and tektites, not only in the near vicinity of the impact, but basically all across the globe, which resulted in giant forest fires. And even the entire Indian subcontinent was set on fire. And the soot and the ashes from those fires clouded the sun for months. Global photosynthesis came to a halt, basically. The oxygen level in the atmosphere plummeted, the oceans became acidic, and Earth eventually plunged into a deep freeze. And every plant and every animal died, or nearly. This was all mere speculation until fairly recently, I think it was 1990, that they discovered the actual crater of that asteroid that hit Earth 65 million years ago. And even then, a lot of people were doubting that this was actually the reason that caused the dinosaurs to become extinct. They found a layer of sediment all across the globe, which is called the KT boundary. It basically consists of soot and ashes from the impact, and also the very rare element iridium, which basically comes from outer space. So it was clear that this asteroid struck Earth, but they found dinoskeletons all the way under that KT boundary, but none on top. So it was clear that their disappearance was somehow related. However, they didn't find any actual fossils within 3 meters below the KT boundary. And that led some scientists to believe that the dinos had already disappeared by the time the asteroid struck for other reasons. And it wasn't until very recently that an American PhD student discovered a phenomenal digging site, I think in Wyoming, where he found actual victims of the catastrophe. So he literally found mammals that were ducking for cover in underground burrows and were executed by the rain of tektites from the impact. And he found skeletons of freshwater fish next to marine species. How did that happen? The tsunamis that roared inland after the impact of the asteroid, they flushed all these marine species into the land, basically, where they died on fields or in rivers next to the marine species. So very rare types of fossils, and only a fraction of that has actually already been dug out and discovered. I wish I had pursued a career in that field. Unfortunately, I became a boring musician, but well, I'm still here all by myself in this museum right now, talking about dinos from a different angle. Now imagine this scenario taken to the human level, and you will arrive at Lars von Trier's movie masterpiece, Melancholia. An imaginary impending collision on a planetary scale, which will eradicate all life on Earth, and the question of how we deal as individuals with the certainty that the end is nigh. And that's basically what's at the heart of this track, Jurassic Cretaceous, and the Phanerozoic 2 record as a whole, this planetary collision theme. Then there is the music. And that track is, I think it's one of the craziest, most intricate tracks I have ever written. And it's one of those songs that actually I started working on ages ago, must have been like at least 5 years. And that was never finished because I was never really happy with it. And I kept changing things around and somehow it just never got finished. But on the other hand, I also always found the motivation to revisit it and try something else. And eventually it got completed in a way that made me happy, and I'm very glad that it did, because yeah, I think it's a track that really represents everything that the ocean is all about. It's heavy, it's pretty epic, it's complicated, but at the same time, there's a lot of feeling to the melodic parts. Truth long